Hey everybody, I'm Zach,
I'm Jesse.
and you're watching the Patreon bonus stories.
Welcome.
This first...
You wonderful patrons.
Oh, yes, you
First
are
of
wonderful.
all, you guys
assumed
rock.
you knew that, but
But I mean, this
We
is...
have to tell you.
I'm just so excited. This is a good Patreon bonus story.
well, let's start with this one. So this is a story out of Clean Technica, and it's from a German engineer's point of view. And he's basically writing an open letter to the CEOs of German car companies saying, this is a wake-up call, guys. It's an uncomfortable wake-up call, but you're about to go out of business.
Right.
And I thought it was really interesting because it's saying pretty much all the same things you've heard us yapping about for years, but it's from a German, a German engineer living in country and going like, I really want you to stay in business, German car companies, because you're a huge part of our economy. And as we've reported, 1/6 of their economy just directly is these automotive companies like BMW, Porsche, VW. But indirectly, if those car companies went away, think of all the peripherals. Like, so if you're a butcher, if you're a real estate agent, they all depend on that. So, and here's the thing, they could all go away at almost the same time. Like, it won't be like Porsche goes out of business and then 20 years later BMW. If it happens the way we think it might, and as this author is saying it might all go away like that.
Right. And that's not good.
No, that's not good. And I'm sure Tesla or some other company would step in and start making cars there, but you never know. Maybe they'd move their plants to some other country. I mean...
Right. And I'm just saying, like, it's not going to happen instantly. It's not going to be like, okay, we're just closing up the BMW factory, and now it's open. We're making Teslas. Like, there are months and months and months of, buying negotiations and then, carting out all the old robots or, whatever they have to do to get the car. They can't just, spool the lines back up and make more gas BMWs.
And here's the thing. Germany has a reputation for amazing engineering. You've got to keep those engineers working on problems. Engineers by nature solve problems.
Right.
And if you basically don't put them on the new problems, they're going to move somewhere else, or they're going to, Germany's going to change in some way. So if you want to keep at the forefront of German engineering, okay, then switch them to electrical, and I'm sure they'll come up with amazing cars. Like, there's no reason why a BMW engineer can't work on an electric BMW.
Right. And I mean, like, Teslas are great. Teslas are amazing. They're not, like, perfect, amazingly, impossibly perfection of electric cars. There are so many improvements that can be made.
Look at the i3. A lot of cool technical innovations with the i3. We're not saying it's, it's
I
the
don't
ultimate,
think it beats any of the Teslas out.
But it was their first shot at it, and they came up with this carbon fiber design with the cool doors that open like this, so there's no center B pillar. I mean, a lot of innovation in the car, which I'm just saying, if they kept working on it and kept innovating, would probably end up with a whole bunch of new cool stuff. And Jesse is not sold.
I would argue that, they get to tout the i3 all the time. They get to be like, we were pioneers. Look at us with the i3. And it's like, okay, you know what else pioneers do? Like, continue.
That's what I'm saying is, don't stop and rest on your laurels with the i3. Keep moving. But if they had been over these past few years,
they wouldn't be in any trouble whatsoever.
They wouldn't. So I'm just...
I mean, they keep... It's like if Lewis and Clark, like, made it to the first campsite, and then they came back and were like, we made it all the way to... I don't know where they started from. They were like, we made it all the way to Iowa. And you're like, isn't there more country? And they're like, we don't actually know. We didn't map it.
Iowa was fine.
Yeah. Right. It's so ridiculous.
Yeah. All right. You want to hear something else is ridiculous? You guys send us this video a lot. This is the Vice, HBO Vice show, and they did this story about this company called Carbon Engineering.
Right.
They have a test plant in Squamish, British Columbia, and what this plant does is what?
They basically want to make fuel out of the carbon dioxide in the air.
It sounds great.
It sounds great.
In fact, the name of the story is CO2 Fuel of the Future.
Right.
Which, wow, that's awesome.
Right. We're going to let you watch it. And this was going to be our in-depth, but we were like, it's going to be really hard to explain this to people without showing them the video.
Right.
And we can't show you the video and monetize our in-depth.
So watch this video, and you're going to come back in 3 minutes and 48 seconds really pumped up. See you in a second.
Why don't we recycle energy?
You're hitting the nail on the head. We would like people to be recycling their fuel in the same way as they recycle other things.
Your technology is we're going to refine that energy, that carbon, out of the atmosphere, combine it with hydrogen and water, And then that's the same as gas or jet fuel?
Yeah, yeah, it's chemically the same. No pollutants. So for example, our diesel burns completely clean. None of that black smoke you see from trucks when they go up hills.
Right.
Completely clean. But yeah, it's chemically identical. So this is our plant. Great to have you here. Everything here is a working model, full process working, and we are capturing CO2 from the atmosphere right here. Think of it as like a big cooling tower. Large fan, the fan draws the CO2 in, chemical reaction, and we capture the CO2.
Wouldn't there be more carbon to capture by dirty, naughty factories?
No, it's uniformly distributed.
So
we could, yeah, we could
anywhere.
put one of these plants in the middle of Beijing, or we could
Right.
put it in the middle of the Sahara Desert. You would capture the same amount of atmospheric CO2.
So we as a species have put it in, so we as a species should be taking it out.
Well, that's our choice, but I think we have to, or find somewhere else to live. This is the fuel that we make. It looks exactly the same as any other fuel.
Right.
It's very, very high chemical performance.
Right.
Higher performance fuel than the stuff you buy at the pumps today.
So it's better than the pumps, it's carbon neutral, and theoretically it would be cheap to make because you're refining the energy that's already out there in the atmosphere.
Yeah, you're using the CO2 from the atmosphere. Your only feedstock, the only thing you're consuming is renewable electricity.
Right.
And here's the interesting thing. A carbon neutral fuel that's compatible with any vehicle in the world today.
Right.
So that car you just drove up in, we can make that carbon neutral tomorrow.
Wow.
Any vehicle, any performance vehicle, any battered old truck, aeroplanes, we're compatible with all of those. Which is significant because nobody's making electric tractors or electric planes.
Right. Do you have to do any modifications?
No.
Wow.
So transportation is about 20% of the CO2 emissions. How are we going to decarbonize that? There's 1 billion cars in the world. So if we all go electric, $50,000 for an electric car, that's $50 trillion. Then you got to deliver energy and electricity to each car. It's a massive change.
Yeah.
Alternatively, why don't we just change the fuel? The price to you at the pump will be the same.
Having something like a carbon neutral gas isn't even enough. We've got to start going negative. We've got to actually pull carbon out of the atmosphere. Now, can this do that, and what's the
We
plan
can
there?
take the CO2 generated here and bury that underground, and you get to negative emissions.
Right.
It's a hugely important thing.
And how many do you need to scale it to get to carbon negative?
You need less of these than there are power stations in the world today to net emissions out to zero.
And how many is that?
It's in the region of tens of thousands. If we are taking measures as we should be to remove emissions elsewhere, now you start getting to an overall negative emissions from the world.
Why isn't the world rushing to Squamish, BC and saying, can we please make 100,000 of these?
So first of all, we're open and ready to receive the world. Secondly, we've really just got to proof of concept here, and it's working. So the next step for our business is to expand across the globe, make carbon neutral fuel, and when the scientists and the governments decide that they need to do negative emissions, the technology's ready.
Okay,
See? Magic.
Aren't you pumped up?
Yeah.
All the world's problems have been
Why
solved. You
didn't
can
we think
you
of
can
this
keep
before?
doing what you've been doing.
Right.
End of the show. In
There's-
fact, we should just cancel the show because
Right.
all the problems have been solved. Okay, so I want to cover a few things.
Yes.
Here. This was basically a commercial for this technology.
They didn't talk about anything other than there's a big fan and it sucks in
Right.
the air, and then all of a sudden you magically get this fuel.
I like Shane. I think he's a great journalist when he's covering things that he's good at covering.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he didn't do his research this time or if he just was so excited about
Let's
this
talk
technology.
about Vice News for just a moment
Okay.
here. Vice News used to be this really out there leftist news source, and they would just send people like, hey, you're going into the middle of a firefight.
Right.
You know, and it was
And they
like...
still do.
Yeah, and they do. And it was like, you know, the first time I stumbled upon them, I was like, whoa.
Right.
You know, that you have to get the real story if you're
Firsthand.
dodging bullets.
Right.
I mean, obviously.
But it
But
has
with this one, it's not the
it's-
same level of...
Well, Vice has grown quite a bit, and when you grow, you get money. And where do you get the money from? A lot of that money has come from
rich people, and where the rich people get it from, you know.
Well, they're getting I mean, a lot of this money is coming in now from big corporate sources. So I just put it that way. Anyway, here's the thing: the CEO of the company, Steve Oldham, he made some statements, and I would just like to fact check them because here we get this video sent to us all the time, like Zach and Jesse. Isn't this great?
Right.
Solves the problem. Well, it's great until you start doing some math. So let's do some math here, okay? Does it take CO2 out of the atmosphere? Yes, it does. Does it turn it into a fuel? Yes, it does. How do you power this process?
Right, because they're saying that you're taking energy. They like Shane says, "Oh, you're getting this energy, this carbon." It's like, no. Energy and carbon are completely two different things.
To make this fuel, you need carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. You need hydrogen. And the way they get their hydrogen is the same way that hydrogen fuel cell companies do it. They use electrolysis.
Either electrolysis or they get it from natural gas.
Right. So let me
which is not carbon neutral.
But let's just say you did it electrolysis method. That means you take energy, and let's hope that you use renewable energy, and you split it apart to get the hydrogen. You split the water apart.
And then it uses a bunch of energy.
Right. It's not a very efficient thing. So they had to use a lot of energy to get the carbon. They had to use a lot of energy to get the hydrogen. And then they put them together into a fuel. Now, he says it's clean. I'm quoting him here. He says it's clean. If you go to their website and if you do some research, it's cleaner than, let's say,
fossil fuels is what they say. Basically, there's no sulfur. And so
less particulates. That doesn't mean no particulates. So here's what I'm driving at. If you burn this fuel that they make, you're getting PM 2.5 particles.
Right.
You're getting NOx, nitrous oxides.
If you're burning, especially in an engine, as we know, they're not the cleanest things.
Right. So what I'm saying is he's not like he's making some kind of super fuel that's clean and it burns and you get nothing. You get that if you burn hydrogen in a hydrogen fuel cell. The product of that is water.
Right.
So what they could have done is they could have just stopped and become a hydrogen fuel cell maker.
Right.
But they weren't. But here's the crux of it. When you burn this fuel in an engine, you get about 20 to 25% of the energy out to move the car forward or to move whatever it is forward.
And the rest of it is heat, just like with every other gas automobile.
If you take the energy from, like, let's say, a solar panel and you put it into a battery and you power a car electrically, you get about 90 to 95% of that energy, which makes the car go forward.
And that's why electric cars, like the electric car that I have, the Leaf, has a battery, which if it were a gas tank, would be less than a gallon of gas. Right? An unthinkably small amount of energy can still propel my car all the way to work, all the way home, and then out to do some errands.
So what Steve Oldham says is you would have to buy electric cars, which cost $50,000 each, and you wouldn't have enough power on the grid to power them all. Whereas with his system, he says you only need to build tens of thousands of my plants, and then we would have all the energy we need. Now, the plant that he's standing in front of is a test concept plant. It is nowhere near the size of the plant. He's talking about building a coal power plant or natural gas power plant size plant.
Yeah.
Then you need to power that plant. So,
and how can you power that plant while still remaining carbon neutral?
It would have to be solar panels or wind, right? So you basically have to surround that plant with so much renewable energy just to power the plant, which would give you some of this fuel, which you then burn inefficiently in cars or planes.
Let's just first talk about this. You have to do... Now, the reason that Elon Musk doesn't like hydrogen fuel cell cars is because you're taking all of this solar energy and then you're doing electrolysis, which you're losing efficiency. Then you're putting it through a fuel cell where you again lose efficiency, which gets you about 70% efficient. And that's good, but again, electric is 95% efficient. And now what you're doing is you're taking the electrolysis, which we already know has inefficiencies in it. Then you're also combining it with this other reaction, which again, we don't know what the efficiencies are, but let's give them the benefit of the doubt, say it's 100% efficient. Then you're putting it into an engine, which is going to be 20 to 25% efficient. You take all this energy, you lose some in the electrolysis, you lose some in the capture, and we're not losing it in the capture, I guess, and combinement of the hydrogen and the CO2. We'll
give them 100%.
Be nice.
Okay, fine.
And then you're just squeezing basically almost all of it out. All of this energy.
Which you then have to transport.
You're just left with this little bit left. So what you could do instead is...
electric cars.
Yeah, just nix the factory.
He says...
You would need like 5 times the amount of solar it would take to power all the electric cars in the world.
So you've already solved that problem by doing his... What he doesn't mention is the fact that you would have to change the electrical system just to power his system.
Now...
And I want to point out, there's only 2 companies in the world doing what he's doing. If it was such a great idea, then people like, engineers would have been sitting around going, look at this calculation. We could just get CO2 out of the atmosphere, turn it into carbon fuel.
Right.
Let's go do it tomorrow. Let's start a company. There would be thousands of these companies.
Right.
It makes no financial sense at all.
It makes no engineering sense from first principles perspective.
And they say that it's carbon neutral. That's only in a perfect situation where you're using 100% renewable energy to do this process. And then best case, it's just carbon neutral. You still added pollution to the atmosphere, which kills people.
Right. Now, the other option would be to bury that fuel underground, and that's a form of sequestration.
Or you could plant trees.
Right. It's not a cheap form of sequestration.
No, it's
You'd
not.
have to pay for it, and
You had to
you
build...
wouldn't be able to sell it. You wouldn't be able to be like, here's this sequestered carbon.
Right.
Because actually, no, just kidding. I'm going to take that back. I'm just going to bury it real quick.
But here's the other thing. Another lie that Mr. Oldham says. He says there's no electric tractors and there's no electric planes. Well,
Not
first
true.
of all, it's not true. And it's not to say that we can't have more of them. We already do have electric planes, and there can be a lot more of them.
Right.
It's as if he's saying basically, well, we have no solution for these other things, so you need my fuel.
Right. There are electric tractors that can do basically what a regular tractor can do.
And we could replace all the world's tractors with electric tractors.
Right. And then to say that there are no electric planes, there are electric planes. They aren't, jumbo liners. But what I'm saying is maybe that's a good...
That could be their little plug. Like, I would
Right.
go for that. If I were him, I would be like, there's going to be this period of time when we haven't gotten Hyperloop going yet, BFR going yet,
Right.
or maybe electric planes going yet. Let's make fuel for those planes. And if you're a company like JetBlue, you say, hey, fly on our planes. We bought our fuel from, Carbon Engineering. It's carbon neutral.
Right.
I would pay extra for that.
Right. Or maybe it's for rocket fuel. I mean, this is the idea.
Right.
I mean, to be fair, this is the idea that Elon proposed for rocket fuel for the BFR. You could have it be carbon neutral.
Right.
There's not a lot of other ways to make a rocket work. You can't just be like, oh, it's fine. We'll just put an electric motor on there.
And-
There's no such thing.
And I don't want to crap on companies like this. What
Right.
I don't like about it is the lying. Okay, so just come out and tell us all the facts so that we can make a conclusion. Don't make it seem like this is some rosy solution, which it's not. Because if you overlook all these things that we just pointed out are false, you realize that it just doesn't make any financial sense, and it's not going to go anywhere built on the suppositions that they projected.
Right. And this is where it gets really dangerous because it's very easy for traditional either automakers or even, oil conglomerates to be like, look, don't you worry.
Exactly.
There's a solution. It's a silver bullet solution. You can just keep your car. You can do everything the same. Don't even
Exactly.
worry about it. We'll solve it. And then you just sit back and be like,
Why do you think so
Oh,
many
they
people
solved it.
forwarded this to us? Because it seems like, great, I don't have to worry about anything. We've solved it.
Right.
We're going to be able to sequester CO2 from the atmosphere. All our problems are solved.
right, no.
No.
It's not economical. You're better off planting trees if you want to sequester carbon.
Exactly.
And if you want to travel, with carbon neutral fuels, just do it electrically.
Right.
It's so much more efficient than,
Right.
again, going through so many steps.
Yes.
Ugh.
All right.
So glad we were able to actually talk about this
Yes.
to you guys.
And
because
this is something that's been bothering us for a while, and it's something we want to do an in-depth on, but you have to be able to see this video to get the full story, and we can't share that on a regular in-depth.
Right. And also, I feel like to the casual observer, it looks like we're just being like,
Yeah,
this
not
is
just-
stupid, blah, blah, blah. But we know that you guys are really smart and you're actually able to, look at this from a very
Objectively,
nuanced perspective
Right.
and be able to be like, I see how this is, both a positive, but in many ways
Dangerous.
a dangerous, solution to be like, oh, it's the panacea to global warming.
Exactly.
Well, what else should I be worried about today?
Exactly.
Let me get in my SUV and go to the
If
store.
you keep
and-
selling technology as the solution to all of our problems, even though you don't have the answer, then it's easy for you to overlook. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to get off your couch. You can just keep doing what you're doing because it's like, oh, technology will solve it.
Right.
And
I
that's not how
technology is solving it. It's
Right.
electric cars,
Solar
and
panels,
stuff like
exactly.
That is the solution. But I mean,
if I did a 4-minute video about my solution to the world of electric cars and solar panels and wind turbines, it would seem too good to be true because I don't have any of the negative side effects. I don't have the air pollution.
Right.
I don't have the lack of efficiencies. It's all about as efficient as you can get.
Right.
So I don't see why we aren't just all jumping on that ship.
Well, there's a bunch of very, very, very rich people who really don't want anyone to jump on that ship.
Right.
And they are scaring people, being like, don't jump on the ship. It's going to sink. It's going to sink, and everyone's going to think you're stupid. You know, like that's their thing, is like all the people who are like, oh, I don't know about this climate change. It's that reason. You don't want to feel stupid when, you know, oh, it turns out someone just left the radiator on. Like, oh, we figured it out. You know, like, way better to be like, hey, I have a car now that doesn't pollute, you know, so I'm not killing my neighbors. You know, 4.3 million people die every year because of air pollution or
Yeah, it's actually, I mean, that's just
billion.
No, so that's million. So that's just World Health Organization.
Right.
Actually, the numbers are more like 7 million people a year when you add up all the different types of pollution. And this is just scratching the surface. Like, these are, scientists don't really even have a full grasp on it yet.
Right. That's just the pollution.
Yeah.
That's not the, you know, that's just the air pollution caused by this small subset of things. Like, this,
I know,
it's not
it's
the
insane.
whole. Power plants are more radioactive than nuclear power plants.
Really?
You know that? Yeah. Because it's full of all this radioactive material.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so if you don't like clean it properly, it's basically like having a nuclear station near you. Or actually worse.
Now I know.
Yeah.
Wow. Did not know that.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into a different.
Let's
get
do
into
a
something
race.
a
Let's
little bit
beat a
more
Lambo.
positive. Yeah.
I want to beat
All
a
right,
Lambo.
here we
Okay.
go.
So here we've got Matt in his Tesla Model X P100D. We've got rapper Professor Green in the AMG G63. We've got Yanni from Yannimes in his own Lamborghini Urus. And the fourth contender is in a Range Rover Sport SVR. I don't even know why he was in the race. That was kind of a joke. But anyway, the real race here is between the Lambo and the Model X. And as we can see here, this happens.
3, 2, 1, go! That G-Wagon's wicked!
Gonna be this way till I'm a geriatric. I'm
Tesla's gone again.
This is the daddy!
That's Tesla.
Absolutely smoked.
Smoked him.
No
Now,
contest.
the best part of the race for me is always when they do races like this and they have a GoPro in each cockpit
and you
and they
just see in the background it just goes, and then they're just like, wait a minute, whoa, I'm trying to drive this crazy car contraption that I have. And and then it goes over to the Tesla, and the guy in the Tesla is just like, wow.
and it's quiet.
Yeah.
See, and the other cars are and in the Tesla's like
Yeah.
that's and basically how many times can you keep doing this before people are going to go, "Oh yeah, that's the car for me." Like
Exactly. Right. How many times?
That's
does
a
the-
Model X.
Right.
That's Sparky.
Yeah. Beating a Lamborghini.
Right.
I mean, why would you buy the Lamborghini?
Right.
What's the point?
The point was to just, I mean, look
The
how
point was
flashy
to
it is.
be fast.
The point was to win.
Now
Exactly.
it's just going to be, Lamborghini. They look very pretty.
Right.
That's what
and
they look like.
you can put a wrap on a Model X. They
Right,
look
you
very
could do
pretty
whatever.
too.
Yeah, it's just
and then the
body
wings come
panels.
up. Come
Yeah,
on.
whatever.
This is pretty cool. So this is from our friend Ignacio. It's the largest battery in Colorado. So check this out.
That one Colorado utility is getting close to unveiling a revolutionary site. They've teamed up with Tesla to store power and lots of it. Jeff Todd went to Weld County to see how the batteries are going to help customers.
This site has been planned for about 2 years. Construction will be done in the next few weeks. United Power says it's not just about storing renewable energy, but it's also going to keep rates down.
This place is maybe the future of what the utility grid might look like.
80 pristine white stacks are filled with the same battery Tesla puts in its cars.
The equipment that's needed here is to start to convert that DC power to AC power.
Jerry Mariza says there are similar products on the market, but partnering with Tesla was an easy choice.
I feel they're kind of battle tested. They've been operating cars and doing things with batteries for a long time. So there's a bit of a known quantity to the Tesla battery.
Batteries will likely be filled from solar farms around Fort Lupton.
The power is produced during the day, and it's usually excess power during the day. We need to store it and then release it later in the day when the sun goes down.
The facility will be used on peak days so that the utility can meet demand without buying expensive energy from elsewhere, which is then passed on to the customer.
Basically going to save our members in United Power probably around $1 million per year to operate this battery. That's a good thing.
In total, it can hold 4 megawatts. It's the largest storage facility of its kind in the state, but other utilities are already looking at it as a model.
We're going to learn a lot from it for sure. We will do more of these, and other utilities will too.
Construction should be done in the next few weeks, and then there's going to be some final testing, but this whole site should be online early next month. In Weld County, Jeff Todd covering Colorado First.
Here's what I loved about this story. Did you pick up on the vibe of the story?
Positivity.
Positive. It was as if, you know how like you watch the news sometimes and it's like a positive story about some positive thing, like
puppies. Almost always contains puppies
Right.
or children.
Right. That's what this was. There was
Right.
no dig on Tesla whatsoever.
It's, you know, and I'm just so used to the FUD. It's almost like they forgot to put it on like their little outgoing brochure to like the main branch, and they'd get a note back like, make it a negative story.
Yep.
You know, like it's like they didn't get that, and they were just like, wow, this is really cool.
Right. Oh, crap. That was a Tesla story. You were supposed to put FUD in there.
Yeah.
Oh, crap.
Right.
That's how all Tesla stories should be.
Exactly.
It saves them $1 million a year.
Right.
And they chose Tesla. Why? They're a proven company.
Battle tested.
Love it. Thank
Sweet.
you. Awesome. You know what else is awesome, Jesse?
This is the coolest video
Okay,
ever.
you guys are in for a little treat here
Yeah.
because I read this story first and it was above my, it was like, whew,
Right.
And then Jesse helped me kind of figure it out.
Yeah.
Once you understand this, you're going to understand why, if there's any way to invest in SpaceX, okay,
Yeah.
jump on that
You
train.
have like a friend's cousin's wife's girlfriend's dog's like dog friend's owner's
dog sitter who works
yeah.
at SpaceX. Somehow,
Just like somehow. Okay, so let's
okay, so you
watch
know what
this
Star?
video.
Okay, well, I think we need to explain it.
Preface it a little bit.
Okay, so Starlink is going to be the over 4,000 satellites that SpaceX is going to put into orbit, low Earth orbit around Earth to be able to make basically a communication system.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, right now, when you get on your internet, and let's say you're in London and you want to contact, someone, your friend in New York, it takes about 76 milliseconds for that message to go from London to New York. With this Starlink system, what Mark Handley, he's a professor at the University College in London, he's basically worked out is that even with only 1/3 of the Starlink satellites in orbit, the network should be able to communicate faster than the current internet speeds. So let's just take a little look at this video here.
Let's try connecting from New York to the most directly overhead satellite, then via the lasers to the satellite most directly over London, and then down. We're running Dijkstra here at 10 frames per second, using link latency as the metrics. The round-trip time is less than current internet paths, though it's higher than it would through optical fiber laid along the Great Circle route. The latency is also quite variable, while routing to the most directly overhead satellite maximizes RF signal strength. It isn't great for latency. Routing up, and then across, involves a dogleg path. Also, one ground station often connects to a northeast-bound satellite and the other to a southeast-bound one. You want to avoid this if you can. It's much better to route the RF links and the laser links together. We add all the possible RF uplinks to the network graph and run Dijkstra's algorithm over the end-to-end network. This gives significantly lower latency, and it is less variable too. New York to London now takes about 50 milliseconds.
Okay, so we just got back from seeing that basically you've all these nodes, right? All these satellites.
Right.
And when you want to send a message, it has to go through different nodes to get there.
Right.
And sometimes it's efficient if it's a straight line, and sometimes it's inefficient. But basically what he's showing is even with 1/3 of the satellites, and even when it's not that efficient, it's still faster than what we've currently
so
got.
50 milliseconds as opposed to 76 milliseconds.
Now, you might be saying to yourself, who cares? I can't even, I won't notice that.
Right.
But here's the thing. There's something called HFT, which is high frequency trading. And it's basically how all the stock markets run nowadays, right? Which means that you've got programmed computers that say things like, as soon as you get this information, like that an earnings report came out, do this, buy stock, sell stock. And if your computer can act faster than my computer, you're going to make more money. Why? Because let's say, let's take Tesla, for example. Tesla earnings come out. They're better than expected. You want to buy. You get to buy a few milliseconds before me, which means you get a better price than I do.
This reminds me of a very good video. It's by Tom Scott. I think we should put the link somewhere. If you're interested, you can go check it out. It's where it's these guys, would intercept semaphore messages. So there was
I remember this one.
semaphore
Yes.
relay, and that was the fastest way to transmit
And they
information.
broke into it.
They broke into it and were able to send, learn about stock trades well in advance. So they were able to be so rich. It's basically the same thing, just with more technology.
So here's the thing. Even though to you and I, we might be like, well, I could live without the 20 millisecond advantage. Banks won't be able to. They will pay whatever it takes. They cannot compete without this. So they will pay whatever price Starlink wants to charge to get in on this network speed. And that, again, is just with 1/3 of the satellites. Once we go to the full 4,000 plus, then the speeds go up even more. And I just want to point out, for instance, London to Johannesburg right now is 190 milliseconds. This will lower it to 91 milliseconds.
And that's, again, with just the 1/3 satellites. And this 1/3 constellation is very good at going east-west.
Right.
That's why the satellites are in kind of like a less up and down orbit, if that makes any sense. Inclination is lower, I believe, is the proper, term. NASA, please hire me. But anyway,
they're not going to hire you talking like that.
And then they'll come up with some other ones that are a bit better. Like the next constellation will be better for north-south communication, and then they'll have some that go over the poles.
But here's the thing. Starlink is going to have this communication network, and it's going to be priceless. It's like printing money.
Right.
And so Starlink is what funds SpaceX, which is what you could argue funds anything that Elon wants to do.
Well, it doesn't fund it yet. It will.
It will. Right. But what I'm saying is if we go down this road, this is just a money printing operation.
And how do you get to Mars?
Money. Elon could be controlling.
He's so smart.
Yes, he's so smart.
I mean, we talk about on the show how he's smart. He makes all these great vehicles. This is like
nobody talks about Starlink.
Right. They're going to make movies about this, like they're going to make movies about like the Wolf of Wall Street kind of thing, like where the people get it's a story about money. It's going to be like that.
Right.
It's a license to print money, as Hanley said. Wow, and it's so cool. We'll put the link to the rest of the video. You should watch the whole thing. I know that it's voiced over by a robot, but you should probably get used to that because robots are going to take over the whole world. Right. So just get used to it.
Let's get back to the show.
Thank you so much for supporting the show, though, by the way.
I know.
This
super awesome.
It's really good, actually, to have this Patreon bonus story.
Well, because, did you realize that basically we just gave you some information. We took a deep dive and we did a lot of the research. It took a long time to figure this out. And we did it because you helped us do it. Like, we can't afford to do it any other way.
Right.
And we want to share that with you.
Right. Again, we don't do the clickbait kind of like, you won't believe this, whoa, kind of thing.
Right.
It's almost always like...
We downplay it a little bit.
We kind of downplay it. We want to get the smart people. We want to get you guys in. And we don't want the 12-year-olds who are just like,
I just want to mention, Starlink, there has been some talk that it will be a publicly traded company at some point. So when that happens,
just on the IPO.
Get in on it. People won't understand it. It sounds kind of boring.
It does. Like the boring company as well.
Satellites.
Right.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much for supporting. I mean, it just you guys rock. Look forward to this every week. And it's just so nice to be like, oh, well, that's okay. If we need to show that video, we'll put it in the Patreon bonus story.
Right.
And, that's why we were so excited. I was very excited for the Patreon bonus story this week because this one is like...
And if you guys, any of you out there are interested in being in the newsroom, because this is how we find out about these things,
it's true.
Then please let us know, and we'll see if we can get you in there.
Yeah.
All right. See you guys.